So my mom tells the principal the whole plan. So he says, Irene is such a good student. So I would hate for her not to graduate from the school. So what we're going to do, we've never ever, the sovereignty of God,
Right.
we've never ever allowed this because she's a good student and you're going to, the child is going to be adopted, no one would know.
Right.
She can return to the school.
Wow.
So I go home and we're preparing. My mom commenced to look for an unwed home that they could place me in so I could have a child.
Right.
Up on her looking, the sovereignty of God, I show you, there was no room. There was no room in the inn.
But there was a lot of people, a lot of girls in your situation too.
Well,
So you wasn't the only one.
See, that tells you something that, in our time they said it didn't happen. You know,
But it did happen. Yeah.
But it wasn't abortion so much.
Right.
It was, they would give them away
It was
for
a cover up. Yeah, it was covered up.
So there was no room. They couldn't find no place for me. They had no space. So therefore, I had to stay home. But I stayed in the house.
Okay.
And my next door neighbors was the only one I knew because I was, staying out. And my brother, oh God, I hated him. They had this song out, Annie had a baby by Little Richard. Can't work no more.
Wow.
And he was so terrible. He would go through the house singing that to me. Because
He was taunting you.
Yeah, haunting me.
Yeah.
And I hated him even more. To go on to show how I had no understanding about childbirth. They were hiding me out. I didn't go to doctors for checkup.
You never had any prenatal care?
No, no prenatal
But
care.
did you tell your mom you were raped? Did you tell anybody?
Nobody. They asked me, I didn't say a word.
But what did you say?
Nothing.
Who was the father?
I didn't say a word. I just let them talk.
Wow.
I was bad.
But what did your brother knew in the book? You said when you were being raped, your brother heard you crying, stop, stop. He looked out, he closed the door. Your brother knew. He didn't tell.
He didn't say anything. So after going down, how when the baby time for the birthing of my daughter, it was Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and the people next door wanted to go. They had two girls, and they asked me to come over to babysit. So I went over to babysit, which was Christmas Day. While I was babysitting, all of a sudden, all this water is on the floor. I'm looking around. Well, after that, all I do is get the water up. I said, I don't know why.
Your water broke.
You don't get this water. I don't know how this water is coming out of me. I know I didn't, I didn't feel like I had to use a restroom, but, and all of a sudden this pain hit me.
Wow.
I went to, and that day you took baking soda, all that kind of stuff. They take stuff.
Oh, for
so
acid.
Get that stuff. I'm thinking, I didn't know what it was. So I'm taking all this stuff to stop this pain. The pain is not getting any better. Then I feel like I have to use the bathroom, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going in there and nothing is happening. I'm sitting there trying to wait for, and nothing is happening. But I felt this pressure out there.
Yeah.
And then finally, one of the girls that was babysitting was old enough. She called her mom, told her mother. They rushed home. Upon that, then they get my parents.
Yes.
Then they rushed me to the hospital.
Okay.
When I get to Kaiser, I can see Kaiser right now. It was on the corner there, and I was upstairs, not on the second floor, but way up. So I'm there, and I'm having this pain. I don't know what's happening. And they're telling me to do what I need to do. All of a sudden, I jumped, stepped up in the middle of the bed, and there's a window. There's a window there. This is true. I was running. They had to catch me, so I got up real quick, and I was running to the window to jump out. That's how terrible the pain was. I don't know what this is all about.
Yeah, you're a baby. Yeah.
And finally, whatever happened, the baby was born.
Wow.
And when the baby was born, I was lying on this bed, and I looked over there, right there, and I saw this round head, full of hair, just dark hair, chocolate. I looked at it. It looked like a little doll, right? And it was something about when I saw that head part. I didn't even see the body, I saw the head part. So in that day and time, in order for you to give the child away for adoption, they have to bring the child in 3 days later. So they brought her in 3 days later. The social worker was there. The sovereignty of God.
Yes.
The social worker was there. My mother was there. And I was there. And the nurse was there. So I'm lying down there, and all these people in the room. And she has a pad and paper.
So you were going to get prepared to give the baby away.
To give the baby away
for
for
adoption.
adoption. That's the plan.
Right.
I follow the plan. That's all I know. I follow the plan. Because I don't doubt. So I'm looking at the little doll. And I didn't talk. You gotta remind me, I didn't talk. So all of a sudden, this lady's got this, I can see that pad, that clipboard that she has with these papers for me to sign. She comes over there. And it had to be God. But my mouth came open, and these are the words, and this is true. These are the words that came out of my mouth. I said, I want my baby. And after that, it was silent. Total silence.
Because you didn't talk.
I didn't talk. But the room was silent.
Yeah.
The next voice that I heard was, my mom says, well, if she doesn't want to give the child away, I'm not going to force her to give her away. She said, Irene, do you know what you're saying? That means you're going to have to stay home and take care, because I'm working. I said, that's okay. I'll do it.
Pastor Houston, you talked about, now last time I cried, I'm holding it together. You talked about the relationship, after you got pregnant with your mom and your brother. What was the relationship with your dad? How did that affect him?
Oh, God. My dad, when I came home from Seattle, after he knew about it, the day I got home from Seattle, I shall never forget, my dad didn't talk to me anymore. He never, I don't remember him even speaking to me.
Until you got married?
Only after, when the child was born, his first grandchild, after months, he began to play with her. And then he began, and I was so glad when he finally started talking to me. He never talked about who it is. He never asked, my father never asked me who was it or anything like that. But he showed because he was so disappointed. He just knew I was his girl and I was going to do great things.
Right.
And it was such a disappointment that he thought I was fast like that. That I was promiscuous.
Yes.
Did this, because he never knew the truth at that time. He didn't know the truth at that time.
Know.
And he died not knowing really what happened.
You never told him?
He didn't know. He died at 59 years old.
Wow.
He never knew.
That you were raped?
He never knew I was raped.
So eventually he did come around
He
and love the baby.
And
He gave you away at your wedding.
Yes.
Yes. So that was a highlight.
Yeah, he did.
I want to read something else you wrote in here. I can find it. This is it. Wow. We packed up our bags and we left the next morning. Upon our arrival, my father was standing on the porch waiting for us. I hesitated for a moment. I was so afraid of what he might say to me. But he just looked at me with disappointment in his eyes. Then he spoke the most painful words I would ever hear him say. From this day forward, I have nothing to say to you. You are not to speak to me, and I do not expect to hear your voice. I was looking for support, and I received rejection instead. I was unwed, pregnant, 16-year-old girl, and an embarrassment to my mother and my father. After he said what he had to say, he went inside. He closed the door behind him.
That is pious. It was very, and sometimes I don't tell that part. I guess I had to write it because it's so, you know, he didn't know because I didn't tell him.
Yeah.
I expected him, and I feel so bad that he didn't know. The fact that he didn't know the truth.
He didn't know the truth.
But I was just afraid. I didn't know. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
The guy had said the same thing my uncle said.
Yes. Yeah.
Don't tell nobody. So I don't know what he's gonna do if I tell what happens.
Right. There's a lot of fear.
Yeah, the fear.
The
When
fear.
fear stops you. It's a door. I tell people, fear is a door stopper.
It really is.
You know, you can push on the door, but if you got a stopper there, you know, you can't go. It's a door stopper.
It's a fear.
You can want to, and know you should,
Right.
but because the door has been put, a stopper's there, you don't do it.
So moving on, you know, the cycle of what you went through. So we're moving on, the molestation, the rape, the pregnancy.
The only thing I knew I wanted was to become a nurse. I was a person I was an individual who loved to learn. And I had already had a vision. I'm gonna go and become a nurse. And that was just, my father knew what I desired. Mm-hmm. And he was saying, yeah, I could do it. He built me, always told me I could do whatever I wanted to do.
Yes.
So that was my dream, was to become a nurse. And the reason why I wanted to become a nurse was because I wanted to work at Children's Hospital. Mm. I was definite, my goals were set. I wanted to work at the Children's Hospital because I said, if I can work with children, that I can help them. Children. So what happened to me, now I can't talk to everybody, but at that moment I'm thinking, if I can work at Children's Hospital as a nurse, then I can help
other children.
So this won't happen to them, but has happened to me as a child.
Tell us about your marriage to Langston.
My mom said one day, she was in the kitchen, and she says, I'm praying that you were married. I'm not talking about getting married. I'm praying, I'm just trying to make it, that's all. And my mom drops this, says, I'm gonna pray that you marry a sailor. That's all she said. So, but mother prays, God hears mother's prayer.
Yes, he did.
So one Easter morning, all I did was cook and clean and stay in the house. That's all I did, take care of my baby.
Did you go back to school?
It was a trying situation. I did, but it was not without a struggle. I went back. I'll tell you, I went back to school. My mom found a babysitter. So I went back to school. But I had to take the baby to the babysitter, plus pick the child up, baby up. So I was trying to find a way, because I was up all night with her, so I didn't get into sleep. So they had after school where you could go and do your homework. Mm-hmm. So I devised this idea where I would just go after school that day and do my homework. So when I picked up my baby, I could go home and get a little rest.
Right.
I wouldn't have to be doing homework and seeing after her at the same time. In doing so, not calling my mom, telling her, I'm home late. I'm not home at the usual time. So because of my because her not knowing what happened, she's thinking I'm out there fooling around, and she's afraid the same thing's gonna happen again. So there's no trust for me.
Right.
So when I got home, I went to the babysitter. The baby wasn't there. When I got home, my mom she had called her and told her I wasn't there. So my mother picked her up for her home. So when I get home, I'm coming home just, glad I got the homework, but I don't know what's gonna go. I got home, my mother clanged to the door and said, listen, I am not gonna be paying a babysitter for you, and you out fooling around, running all her words, I can't remember.
Right.
But just, all I'm saying is, why is she saying this? I'm thinking, I was at school doing my homework, but I didn't tell her.
You didn't talk.
I didn't say anything. I just let it happen.
Right.
So she said, you're not gonna go to school, you might as well do it right now, so don't worry about going to school tomorrow. This is over with. I'm not paying anyone to keep your child. So I stopped going to school.
So what grade were you in? 11th or 12th?
I was going to 11th grade. So I stayed home, I didn't fight. I heard about some kind of way. McKinney, they had a adult school at that time.
A GED program? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I asked my mom, could I go to school at night? Because I wanted to get an education. I really did. So she said, okay.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. I had to walk up to, it was up there by Berkeley. I had to walk from Sacramento and Dwight way all the way up to Grove Street.
Wow. So you were determined.
I walked up there.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it was late when I got to school, and I walked back home.
Yeah. You were determined. I mean, everything you went through, nothing could stop you. And you keep referring to the sovereignty of God. God was with you every step of the way. I know we're probably out of time, but we have so much more to talk about. But, everybody has gone through trials and tribulations. And when I met you at your church, when I read this book, I was shocked. I was shocked because I was like, this can't be her. This can't be her life. And I commend you for writing this.
Thank you.
Because so many other people are suffering. So many other people are going through trials and tribulations. But I want to read something to you. And I pray that this will help you. Because when I read it, I said, oh my God, this is Pastor Huston. Excuse me. I read it before, but I didn't know if I would have time to read it again. But this seems like this is something that you went through your life. Sexual abuse is difficult to determine because it's not reported. Experts agree that incidence is far greater than what is reported to authorities. Nobody talks about. You're not the only one. 1 in 5 girls, 1 in 20 boys is a victim of child sexual abuse. 20% of adult females and 5 to 10% of adult males recall a childhood sexual assault or sexual abuse incident. During a 1-year period in the U.S., 16% of youth ages 14 to 17 have been sexually victimized. And over the course of their lifetime, 28% of U.S. youth ages 14 to 17 have been sexually victimized. Children are the most vulnerable, the ages between 7 and 13. 3 out of 4 adolescents have been sexually assaulted or victimized by someone they knew well. Hold on. 1.6% of children between the ages of 12 to 17 were victims of rape, sexual assault. This is from the Bureau of Justice Statistics. 1986 study found that 63% of women who had suffered sexual abuse by a family member also reported a rape or attempted rape after the age of 14. This is you. When I read this, it said, you're not the only one. Children who had experienced the rape or attempted rape in their adolescent years were 13.7 times more likely to experience rape or attempted rape in their first year of college. A child who is the victim of prolonged sexual abuse usually develops low self-esteem, a feeling of worthlessness, and an abnormal or distorted view of sex.
Yes.
The child may become withdrawn, mistrustful of adults, and become suicidal.
Oh, yeah.
Children who do not live with both parents, you were with your grandmother, your grandparents,
Right.
have a higher risk of being sexually abused. Child sexual abuse is not solely restricted to physical contact. Some abuse could include non-contacted abuse such as exposure to porn and voyeurism. Compared to those with no history of sexual abuse, young males who were sexually abused were 5 times more likely to cause teen